Well, hello, hustler. Welcome to another episode of the Wellness Hustle. I'm Brit Tincup. I'm a creative designer, a serial entrepreneur who lived with chronic stress that had me testing every health and fitness tip and trick that would make me feel like myself again. And I'm joined by my co-host, Sasha Fisher, an ex-pro athlete, personal trainer, and nutritional therapy practitioner with years of experience helping high-achieving individuals to reach their health and fitness goals. We're here to redefine what wellness means, simplifying health, fitness, and self-care, empowering you to fuel ambition and embrace wellness, because we believe that hustle isn't a bad word. When applied properly, it's a superpower. Now let's jump in.
Welcome back to the Wellness Hustle. I'm Sasha, your trainer and your wellness coach.
Yep.
And this is Brit.
It's me. I am Sasha's co-host and wellness enthusiast.
Yeah, and today's episode, it's all about Brit. Because this weekend, guess what? It's Brit's birthday.
My birthday.
So it's going to be all about Brit and her wellness journey, how she went from feeling overwhelmed by life and to thriving with a balanced routine.
Yeah.
So Brit, you've come such a long way. You
Gosh.
lost 100 pounds.
Yeah.
Yes.
I lost 100 pounds.
And I feel like your story is going to be so inspiring to so many people. This is why we wanted to do this podcast.
Yeah.
To let people know you better, but also it's going to give them more inspirational, I think, kind of a story so they can kind of maybe learn from you and make changes in their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope so. I hope that everything I've gone through in my life isn't for nothing. No, I'm teasing. No, I hope it inspires people. I mean, I definitely have had I feel like I've lived 100 lives in one. And, I've been married, I've been divorced, I was an athlete, I was a sales manager in like so many different forms.
Business owner.
I recently closed down my company, Haven and Flux, and now I'm doing like creative design stuff, which I've always done in pretty much every aspect. But a big part of my journey has been getting my health and fitness and my mental under control. So
that brings me to the question, like, what inspired you to start your wellness journey? How did it all started? Like when?
Yeah. So I think I would be remiss to not start by just giving a shout out to my parents because they set a really incredible foundation for me. We were super active growing up. So I grew up in San Diego until I was 11. And then from 11 to 18, I lived in Incline in Tahoe. And during that time, no matter where we lived, the priority was to be active all the time. So I was riding horses, snowboarding, playing softball, basketball, volleyball.
So you had a really active childhood.
Super active childhood. I always was in some sort of sports, especially once I got into high school. And then my mom is really into nutrition. And she loves to cook. So I spent a lot of time at the kitchen counter watching her cook.
Yep.
And she was the kind of mom who, and I'm so blessed, but I had eggs and toast every morning. Like I had a meal in the morning. She'd make my lunch for me every single day, balanced meal. I used to always trade my sandwiches for Oreos.
Sorry, Mom.
Yeah, sorry, Mom. Not always. It was like occasion. I just wanted a couple Oreos and we didn't we didn't have that. The Twinkies, those like brownies with the we didn't get processed foods. And so, and then growing up in Incline, there was no access to processed foods. We didn't have fast food there. There was like a Starbucks. That was
really? Now there is, I think.
There are, but not in Incline. It is starting to change a little bit, but like we had literally a Subway, which is now gone. And then we had Starbucks. So I didn't have access to fast foods like I did once I moved to college. So that is when I decided that was when I had issues. So I moved to Southern California when I was 18 years old to go to college. I was in Costa Mesa and I had fast food everywhere. And because I had spent so much time watching my mom cook and not like actually cooking with her, I didn't really know how to cook.
You really didn't? You didn't learn?
I think I knew intuitively, but I didn't want to. And
do you feel like you were a little rebellious because you couldn't have any of these things?
Yeah. And I was very much like a different woman than my mom growing up. Like that was always very clear to me, not in a bad way. It just was that like my mom instinctually, naturally, like she's so good at all that stuff. Like she's just so good at it. And I didn't have an interest in it. And I think my mom like genuinely enjoys cooking and like making up a nice house and all of those. And I didn't have that yet. I definitely
Yes.
have it now, but I didn't have it then.
Mm-hmm.
And so, hold on. Sorry, guys. Sage is with us today and she has a squeaky toy in here. I don't know how she snuck that in here, but she did. But yeah, so my mom, we were just so different. So then when I got to college, I was like, oh, I'm just never going to be like her. So I'll never try.
Okay.
It was one of those things. Like
Mhm.
she just was so high up to me. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I was working a lot and I ended up getting really, really sick. So I was dating my ex-husband at the time and his family eats very different than my family did. So it's a lot of like dairy and a lot of starches.
And you guys hung out together with his family a lot?
Yeah. And we also like Del Taco was a late night thing.
Yep.
And In-N-Out, I all of a sudden had access to In-N-Out. So I was going to In-N-Out a lot. Like there were just a lot of different things. And then eating a lot of microwavable foods.
Okay.
So with all of this happening, including the amount of stress I was under, I started gaining weight rapidly. And another thing to keep in mind here is that when I turned 18, my body started to fill out. Like I started becoming a woman. And so I thought at first, like, oh, I'm just filling out.
I'm just curvy.
I'm just curvy now. Like I've always wanted to be curvy and here I am. And then it was like, oh no, I'm gaining a lot of weight, like a lot. So then I started Weight Watchers.
Okay. But did you do any movement? Because before you were an athlete. So what happened with that part?
It disappeared.
Okay. So we dropped off the movement.
Yep.
And now we're eating Del Tacos?
I'm eating Del Taco. I'm doing basically no fitness. And I went from being like 2-a-days, weight training, drills, conditioning to just nothing at all.
Yeah.
And then wakeboarding in my free time, snowboarding in my free time. None of that's happening. I'm just sedentary. I think I was probably a little bit depressed. I probably missed my family.
Well, you did, but also when you stop moving, you don't feel your best.
Exactly.
So there's that. It's all of the things together. Wrong foods, lack of movement, away from your family, all of that combined.
And then having a full plate of classes and a full-time job was a lot. And then I was with my ex who I don't think he was super great for my nervous system just in general. We just didn't mesh very well. But I married him. So who's to say? So then as I kind of go on, and I'm now on Weight Watchers. Weight Watchers wasn't really working for me. I started working for this company called Lorna Jane, and I was an assistant store manager for them. And I started learning more about nutrition. And that was when I started getting into really, at the time, unconventional concepts for wellness, which that can include everything from, and I did these, the muscle test resistance.
Yes.
I did one of those. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's essentially they put these vials on your stomach. You're laying on your back. They put a vial on your stomach. You hold your dominant hand up and they try to push your hand down and you're supposed to resist it. I thought it was bullshit.
It's not. I've done it too.
It's not bullshit at all. The competitive part of my brain was like, don't let her push your arm down no matter what. You're so strong. Nope. So ancient grains and gluten, like wheat, essentially immediately could not hold my arm up. It would like made me weak.
Amazing.
So those were the two things. I changed my diet. I started to see some adjustments and then I get engaged and downhill because of this. I think the stress of like my wedding wasn't really what I like. It was for the moms, really. I feel
it always is.
Yeah.
Everybody's wedding is for the moms.
It's for somebody else.
I'm not. Yeah. We can whole podcast.
Yeah.
On that.
It wasn't a bad thing. It was just that like, I've never been married before and they had all these ideas. And so that was, and then balancing the two different, my mom and his mom are very different. And so like, that was a challenge. Stress of that. I get married. I realize I don't want to be married about 6 months into my marriage.
Oh boy.
Stress is through the roof. I end up on medication. I'm getting hospitalized. I'm 21 years old. I was 24 when I got married, but at 21, we figured out that I had celiac. Well, not celiacs. I got diagnosed with celiacs, which I didn't have.
Interesting.
So I was basically just
misdiagnosed.
I was the person who was just trying to find solutions for myself. I was gaining weight rapidly. Everything I tried, I couldn't lose weight. I was in and out of the hospital with gastrointestinal issues that they were like, we don't know, you just have gas. And I'm like, that's can't be the answer. How do I have, and it was like gas under my rib cage.
And how do you always have that and never release?
And then I would eat, I mean, when I was like 19, 20, I would eat a meal and 2 hours later I would be violently ill. I couldn't keep food in my body, but I was gaining weight.
That is so scary.
It was terrifying. So that was when I started working for Lauren and Jane. I started getting movement back into my life because I had to go to these studios and sell clothes. And then like I'd go work out and try the class. And then I started learning about different really unconventional concepts for wellness, started trying those, started getting my diet under control. I get married. I lose myself entirely, ask for a divorce, doesn't go over well. I end up in the marriage for like 5 years. When I'm
5 years. When did you ask for divorce? Within 6 months?
Yeah. 6 months
and
to a
you
year.
stayed another 4.5 years.
Yeah. Yep, I did. Was heavily medicated. And then, and you know, those medications, they impact your weight and your, all of that.
Everything.
It was bad. So then I was like doing juice cleanses, all of that. I felt terrible. I can't even, like, even as we're doing this, I'm like holding my arm and like,
I can see that you're relieving that stress. And
it's so stressful.
So stressful. So what changed? Like what pivoted? Like how did you start going instead of up the hill, down the hill? Like where was that little, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the most pivotal moment that I can remember and that I think is really the case was I essentially ended up on a one-way plane home thinking I was going to end up like that my ex-husband was going to come with me. And he didn't. And when I got here, found out like a bunch of other things that led to divorce. I ended up here in Nevada, back living with my parents in their guest room. I had just a carry-on suitcase. And when you have hit that level of rock bottom, I'm 29 years old. I'm in my parents' house that isn't even my childhood home. This is like my parents' home. And I have literally a carry-on suitcase. And it just kind of domino snowball affected or whatever you want to call it of just and this is the thing is when I started this 5 years ago, or I guess it's almost 6 now, what it really was just like immediately intuitively, it was almost like, and the reason I wanted to talk about the foundation, I was home with my parents.
Exactly.
So those meals I was getting before, my mom's now cooking me meals again. Like it was, and I started to learn how to do that stuff for myself because I realized, okay, my mom is nurturing me and like taking care of me. My dad's got a gym in the garage and he's like taking me out there. We're working out together and
moving again.
I'm moving again.
And you're in a safe place. So and there's less stress. You're safe. You're with people who love you and have the best intention for you.
Yeah.
So all of those together, it's so important to have.
Yeah. And I like to tell people too, and I've told this to like my cousins and things like that, is that when you have so much stress and you feel very overwhelmed and that like you don't feel like there's any way to get out of the woods. I tell people it could be literally one thing that you need to eliminate from your life. And that's a harsh reality. You can eliminate one thing and automatically like, and that's what happened. I eliminated my ex-husband and that's not on him, right? It's just like, that wasn't working in my life. That wasn't the path for me. And so when I eliminated that, it was just like, oh, that's right. This is how I like to eat. This is intuitive to me. This is natural to me. This feels right. I'm making choices for myself again. You know, I had never really been on my own to make decisions for myself for what was in my own best interest. And that is such an important thing to have. So then I started making better choices for myself, adding more protein into my diet, getting more balanced meals in, working out again. So that was really where that pivot happened.
Just moving back home.
I know. I'm not telling everybody to move back home, but
no. But it has to be some kind of a change to make you feel like you can do it.
Absolutely. And, you know, I've talked to, like I said, my cousins, my friends, things like that. And I've watched them make that one singular change. And it's been anything from like getting rid of a boyfriend to like, you know, changing your career to the thing that is more in line with what you're interested in. And then just seeing those people flourish how I did.
Yeah.
And you owe it to yourself
Right. Because it's never dead end.
No.
Like you can do something about it. Even though it feels like at the moment it's impossible, it's like ripping the band-aid.
Oh my God, rip it off, man.
Yes, rip it off, move through. You have to move through whatever that is to be able to have a better life.
Yeah.
For
And
sure.
and I then had to reevaluate recently, and this has been happening over really the last year of like, okay, what in my life right now is creating this friction? What is the one thing I need to remove that's creating this friction for me that is like something that is I feel like I'm fighting an uphill battle constantly with.
Hmm.
And that was Haven in Flux.
Do you feel like we always have something that we're fighting? How do you feel?
I think that it's not that you're always fighting something. I think that you can find levels of peace, but I think that if you're not, I think that the majority of your life, like 70% of it, should be that peaceful movement, that like downhill momentum.
Hmm.
But I think that if you're not constantly evaluating what that thing is that's
Hmm.
causing friction in your life,
Hmm.
then you're not growing.
But also, I think if you are not having a friction or moving through, the friction changes, right? For you to grow and become bigger than what you are now and you
Yeah.
want to be, there's always going to be some kind of a friction,
Right.
right? So then you have to move through it again. It's just the growth. It's like when you cut the tree down and you see the circles inside the tree.
Yep.
It's kind of like that to me, like my life. Like which circle did I grow to get through to the next circle? Like
That's a
what am I doing? Yeah,
yeah,
that's kind of how I see it.
that's a great analogy. And as you were saying that, I was thinking, what it is, it's not the friction so much of something being difficult. It's the constant,
Growth.
continuous issue that you keep, like, let's say it's a relationship. You keep having this conversation over and over and over
Mm-hmm.
again. And either you're not changing or the other person isn't changing. Like you're not adapting to the other person's needs. Because when you get into a relation, we're just using this as an example. When you get into a relationship, you try to figure out what that person, what you need from that person. Or, I mean, let's say, for example, let's talk about the protein smoothie. This is a better analogy. The protein smoothie. I have been putting Greek yogurt in pretty much everything I eat. And
Mm-hmm.
we're realizing, and I'm like, why do I keep getting acne? Like, where the heck is this acne coming from? I'm having
Yeah.
some swelling. Where's the acne? I'm eating so clean. What is going on?
Mm-hmm.
And we had the conversation of like, maybe it's dairy.
Yeah, baby's dairy.
Yeah.
It's
So
doing it.
if I'm constantly having dairy and I'm having the same problem and I'm having the acne and I'm having the
Yeah,
acne over and over and over again, and I never try to remove that dairy,
you're never gonna know.
I'm never going to know if that was the right move for me to make. And like that can be applied to anything in life, whether it's your relationships or your career or anything like that. If you're coming up against the same roadblock and getting
Mm-hmm.
the same results
Right.
every time, that's not your path. That's not your person. That item is not for, like, I can't have gluten. Okay, guys, I just can't have it. It fucks me up. So if I keep having gluten, I'm going to have problems.
Yeah,
So remove it.
we're gonna remove it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, have it
Unfortunately.
once in a while.
Yeah.
What do you think was the most surprising challenge in maintaining your routine so far?
I think it's the consistency for me. I'm a pretty squirrely person, as we've established here. So it's just making sure that I'm doing the things that I know that I need to do.
Consistently.
Yeah.
But what is under it? Like, why are you not making it a priority?
Like mentally, I think now I'm much more consistent than I used to be, which I
Because
think
you're
is
making it a priority.
because it's my priority. I think in the
Mhm.
past, it was hard for me to get that consistency. I have a
Mhm.
little bit of time blindness.
Yep, because
So,
you create a yeah.
yeah.
Same here. Mhm.
So all of a sudden, I think I have more time in the day and I
Yep.
don't, or like I've, fucked around in the morning longer than I should have. And next thing
Yep.
I know, I'm out of time and I can't go to the gym. And it's like, well, that can't be my reality. I have to be consistent with these things every single day.
Yeah, I think it's just being really very disciplined.
Yeah.
Just like self-discipline for creative people is so hard
So,
because I can relate. That is the hardest thing for me, to discipline my own self.
yeah.
Because I've always been in an environment like professional player, somebody else had the schedule for me. I had to just show up. But
Mm,
right now I have to create my own schedule and I have to stick to it, and nobody is gonna fire me for me not showing up.
yep.
So that's a big for me.
Yeah. I mean, and not only, and you just kind of brought it up, but you talking about being disciplined too, this kind of brings me to the next thing. And that's really has been the biggest challenge for me. I've lived a lot of my life for others.
Mm-hmm.
I've lived it for my teammates. I've lived it for my parents. I've lived it for my brother. I've lived it for
Mm-hmm.
my ex-husband. And the biggest change for me and the hardest thing was putting myself first.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to the consistency and the discipline, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you be consistent and disciplined in something if you don't have that self-worth and that self-value to put yourself first and do the things that you want to do that you know are going to be best for you,
Yeah.
even if they aren't great for other or they inconvenience somebody
Inconvenient,
else.
or yeah, if you don't have as much time for others because you had to take that time for yourself.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Closing Haven and Flux was a big part of that realization for me because I think I wasn't super happy towards the end of that. And it's a great business. Like I loved it. I loved creating it. It was a beautiful thing and I'm so proud of it. But I started to have a lot of resentment for it. And I was hitting those same roadblocks over and over and over again. And I just had to like come to the realization and then be strong enough to say, I have to do this for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have to close this down for myself because I've now tried on this other thing, which is creative design.
Yep.
And like, I'm good at that and I like that and it brings me joy. And like, there's nothing wrong with saying, okay, this is going to disappoint a lot of people to close down Haven and Flux,
Mm-hmm.
but I have to do this for myself.
Yeah. And you have to grow. You're a creative person. And a lot of creatives, we don't like the same thing over and over again. If there's no room to grow within what you created, then you're moving on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Because that's how we grow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really it with Haven. It was like that creative, I was getting creative blocks because there's only so much you can do with a white candle.
Exactly.
So
in the end, it's a candle.
It's a candle at the end of the day.
So for listeners out there who are so just astonished by your results, right? Starting here, gaining all this weight, losing it,
Yeah.
and thriving now. They want to know, what is your routine like right now?
Yeah. And I have to just touch on the 100-pound thing. I didn't even know that had happened until because I wasn't getting on the scale or anything. I just randomly got on a scale at the doctor's office and I was like, wait, that's 100 less than what I was when I was going to the doctor in Southern California.
Wow.
Yeah. So I naturally and I wasn't like on a diet either. I just want to.
But you knew in clothes size, I'm sure, that you were losing weight.
Oh my God. So the last 5 years of my life, I've spent so much money on clothes. Also, I got to give it up to my mom because she's been spoiling me and being like, I'll get you a pair of jeans because those are not fitting you. But yeah, it's been like a trip because honestly, I have lost so much weight. As far as my wellness routine and what that looks like today, I mean, I think the biggest thing is my end cap. So it's my morning routine and my nighttime routine.
Which we did the whole episode on the morning, but I'm sure we'll do one in the evening.
Yeah, I won't touch base on like my morning routine. You guys can go listen to that. But it really is just making sure, as far as nutrients go, I think that's the biggest thing for me that I've noticed a difference in is like, I now make sure that all of my meals have all of the nutrients that I need to get in them. So, proteins and fats and things like that. And that's only gotten more intense since I met Sasha. Before I was kind of just doing it because it felt like the right thing to do.
And do you feel like you cook most of your meals now? Because there was taco, what was the place?
Del Taco.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I cook almost all my meals now.
Yeah.
At home, which saves you so much money, guys.
Yeah. And also, what's going in them. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely a lot less of that. I took a lot of I used to party a lot, like really party, like rage cage party. And I don't do that. It's a special occasion thing if I do, and rage cage doesn't come all the way out of her cage. So, so that's been really healthy for me. And
so you're turning into an adult a little bit.
I know my parents are like, wow, you've grown up so much. I'm like, well, I missed all my 20s. So there's that. I was like a wife through my 20s.
Oh, I get it. I was an athlete through my 20s. Yeah. So after college, I did my fair share of partying as well.
Yeah. 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 Cause when you're like, I was working my ass off to pay for shit. So
exactly. Same.
Yeah. You're just nose to the grindstone. And all of a sudden you look up and you're like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah. So then I'm whooping it up for a few years.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Made some incredibly poor decisions for myself then. But that's another thing is like, I think the biggest part of it's not so much my wellness routine. It's just I make better decisions for myself now. And I make those decisions like with me first in mind. Because I started to realize, and this really only happened within like the last 2 years, I started to realize, everybody had an opinion on who I was.
Yes.
Everybody had something to say because, I started Candleline and then I had a different podcast. And I was letting people hear, really, I was giving too much information on my life and not all of that was good. And people were building these perceptions of me.
They only knew one side of you.
They only knew like 2% of my life. And so this is not to like fault anybody else. This is on me. Like
that's what you were showing.
That was what I was showing. Yeah. And so I started just really like putting myself first and really like learning how to value myself and really doing things that I knew that would probably disappoint others. But I realized that, I've gotten a lot of heat in my life for being aggressive, for being loud, for being intense, for being like a lot of these things, which really benefited me when I was an athlete.
For sure.
And that really benefited me when I was in sales. And they have been like really important parts of my life. But I started to interpret that personally, and nobody said this to me. This was my own interpretation, that meant somehow that I wasn't like a kind person.
Okay.
And that like when I was making decisions for myself, that it meant that like it was selfish to do that. It was not me putting others first.
Because you were overcompensating.
I was overcompensating. And so now I'm not overcompensating. And it might be perceived as me overcompensating, but this is genuinely me. Like this is who I'm so comfortable with. And sometimes I'm not, but most of the time I'm pretty comfortable with myself. And that is the biggest wellness routine change that I could say is like, put yourself first and like, be exactly who you are. And then all your people will fall into line and all of the things that feel right to you start to fall into line.
Exactly. And the true friends, they love you for who you are and they will support you. There's not going to be any problems with any of your choices. They're just going to be there for you. And that's the bottom line.
And those relationships are so impactful and nourishing, and that is just above and beyond in my opinion.
Those people are special. Those are the ones that stay with you through thin and thick and different changes in your life and all the chapters that you've gone through and grew as a human. Like it's very inspiring to people, I think.
And getting to see them go through their experiences and support them through all that too.
That's what its life is all about. But as we said, the wellness aspect of it is such a huge part. Just being well. That's why, wellness, being well and supporting your own well-being, it's the only way you can support others in life. And if you're not well, you're not going to be able to help anybody else.
And by making the changes in yourself, you start to see the people who are closest to you make the changes for themselves too.
Yes, ripple effect.
The ripple effect.
100%.
And it goes back and forth. Like my parents were a big part of me getting healthy again. And then now I'm seeing that like I've gone down the rabbit hole and they're like, oh wait, I want to try that. Like my mom is trying to balance her blood sugar right now. And I'm like, oh yay, that's so good.
Yay, Mom. So that brings me to my final question for you. By the way, thank you for sharing all of that because I know it was not easy for you to relieve all that. So the last question is, how has your personal transformation physically, mentally, and emotionally shaped your approach to relationships, self-worth, and the way you navigate life today?
I think
it's a big question.
It's a big question.
A loaded one.
I think the way that it has shaped my approach to relationships, I'm single. I used to invite a lot of really toxic experiences into my life, and I no longer allow that. And the reason I think for that is, when you start to take care of yourself and you start to feel that goodness in you, like you start to feel really good in your own skin
and self-worth,
and you're building this self-worth, I started to see everything differently. Like I just started looking at not only people, places, environments, like habits completely differently. and deciding that those weren't for me anymore. Like I was just not going to put myself in those situations. I became really guarded and isolated for a long time. And I think I needed that. I don't think that's necessarily a terrible thing. Because I was really far down the rabbit hole of like toxic behavior.
So it was a reset.
It was a reset.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just noticed once I came out of that, now I'm able to see things much differently. It's like, okay, if I invite this, let's use a person as an example.
Mm-hmm.
If I invite this person into my life and they don't have the same values as me, whether it's food, nutrition, is that going to be somebody that I can keep in my life for a long period of time? You know, if I'm dating somebody and they're not interested in fitness and in health, well, that was what I experienced in my last relationship with my ex-husband. Was like, he didn't care about health and fitness. And then that impacted my health and fitness because you're the sum of the 5 people you keep closest.
Right. And that would be your closest person.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, you want to be active with your person. You want to go on hikes. You want to do things together. You want to cook beautiful meal together. And if all they want to do is take out, get pizza somewhere, go drink beer, watch football, never leave the couch. I mean, it's not going to be a person.
No.
It's just a different place, different time. Yeah.
Yeah. Although if anybody wants to watch football on the couch with me, I'm always down for a Sunday.
Just a Sunday though, not every night.
Not every day. It's not every day. And that's the other thing is like, even on a Sunday, I'm watching like the top 2 games. I'm not, it's a lot. I watch a lot of football. Sasha, I can't put the football down, okay? Don't take it from me.
I won't.
But it's true. It's like you definitely do evaluate people differently. And I don't look at people as like, oh, that's a bad person because they don't do what I do. It's just like, you're not my person.
Exactly.
And that's for friendships, that's for relationships, that's for everything. And I really do think that helps you develop not only your self-worth, but it also helps you develop a healthy lifestyle.
Right.
Yeah.
Well put. So you would say how many years this journey has been for you, like the wellness journey, when you started back?
Yeah.
Kind of you strayed away and then you went back to it, right? Because
Yeah.
that's what happened in your life.
We're coming up on 2 decades, but it's been 17 years.
So it's quite the marathon.
Yeah, it's definitely
not a sprint.
It's definitely a marathon and not a sprint. And Sasha and I have talked about, adding one thing in and then removing things. And there was a lot of me trying to go back to my old ways and then coming back and then beating myself up over it and then going back and then coming and then being like, okay, don't beat yourself up, just do differently. And then, so even my mental around how I approached each of these drawbacks, you could say, changed and developed over time. So like you have to try things on and see if they work for you. This goes back to bioindividuality.
Yep.
And it's just figuring out what works for you.
Right. And as you know, the readiness level, you kind of start to think about it. So you try, but you're not ready yet. Then you beat yourself up. It's totally normal. Me working with so many clients, a lot of times they think they're ready. They come in, they spend the money, and they're not ready. So there's different levels of readiness of a human who wants to change their life for better.
Right.
So you kind of battle through it a little bit. And eventually you climb that mountain and you can see over the horizon.
100%. And by the way, you climb that mountain and then you kind of come back down the mountain a little bit. And then you climb another mountain.
Exactly.
And then you come down the mountain a little bit. Like,
yes.
And even now in my day to day, and even like when I look at my life as a whole, I'm like, there's going to be another. I almost just literally started singing Miley Cyrus. There's always going to be another mountain to climb. There's always going to be another. I don't know how the lyrics go, but like, there's always going to be another mountain to climb. There's always going to be a thing you want to improve. And it's like, don't beat yourself up when you get to that valley and you fucked up and you feel like you ruined it or whatever. It's like, no, just start again.
Just start again. And also, as we talked previously, your body's going to change throughout your life. So that's another mountain to climb, because whatever you created for yourself is no longer going to be working necessarily for you. So you have to make adjustments. I think it's not how many times you fall, what they say, but how many times you get up. You just have to remember that.
A big part of the last 2 years for me has been realizing that like a failure life, if you're failing, you're doing life right.
Right. Because you're learning.
Like I'm almost less interested in the win, because the win is just like the icing on the cake. I'm more interested in the fail and the learn. Because when you're in the fail and the learn, it's growth and you're figuring things out and you're challenging yourself. And that has its own mental benefits. And then when you get to the win, you're like, yes, I did that. And then inevitably you're going to fail at something else.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's how it goes.
That's how it goes. I hope this was helpful to you guys.
Happy birthday again. Thanks for sharing your story, Brit. I know it's brave. Not a lot of people get to open up like that, and just share every single struggle that they went through. It's not easy to do. Most people don't want to do it. So thank you, because your openness will help, hopefully, all of us to make small changes in our lives and just have a better life in the end.
Yeah. Keep on keeping on. That's what you got to do. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. Thank you for all the kind words. And
and we would love to hear about your wellness journey. If you guys want to share with us, you can shoot us email, right? You can DM us, all of the things. If you have more questions for Brit, how she overcame all of the things in her life and still going strong and thriving and looking beautiful.
Thank you.
So you guys can totally DM her.
Yeah. You're next up. I want to interview you next.
Oh boy, I'm scared.
All right, guys. Well, if you loved this, share it with a friend, subscribe, review, all of the things that help us keep doing this week after week. We appreciate you.
Yeah, appreciate you so much. And ciao for now.
See you on another time.